It's cool.
Hey everyone, my name is Nelson DeWitt, and this is a Kickstarter's guide to Kickstarter, and we're talking about what it takes to successfully launch a creative project online. And today I have with me David Glee. How do you pronounce your name?
Greelish.
Say that again?
Greelish.
Greelish. It's a hard last name. And he is going to be talking about his project where he is trying to revive an old newsletter and publish it in a new form online. And so you did a smaller Kickstarter project, and I just want to hear a little bit about how you heard about the site and how you came up with this project.
I do a podcast, a couple of them, but I do one that's collaborative where I have a couple other people on. And when I first started it, it's called the Retro Computing Roundtable. I would have different guests on. Now it's me and two other guys regularly, which I kind of think is a better format. And in any case, I'm a fan of a guy named Jason Scott, and he's done a couple of documentaries. And so in learning more about him, it turned out he did a Kickstarter, and he came on the show, my show, and then he had done a Kickstarter project in late '09. And he had raised like $27,000, and it allowed him to quit his job and to finish his second documentary that he was working on. I want to see if I had it had it right here. I guess I don't. It usually was right over here. I think I took it to work recently and watched it again. So that's how I learned about Kickstarter, and we talked briefly about that. And so my Kickstarter was about republishing 9 issues of a zine I used to do. So they were published from '93 to '97, so it had been a while, and I've always wanted to put them in a compilation book. And so, of course, I thought, oh, wow, this would be a great way to do it. So I actually applied for it like in March, and it was approved. So it's only just, this is August, right? So it's only just July, I finally did the whole project, and, it went live and such. And I thought, and the nature of what my Kickstarter, my book is about, it's about history and computer history, which is a real niche topic. And it's actually, I think, blossoming now, So I felt like there definitely would be, if not, better demand for it. And it's history, so it doesn't get old.
So why did you pick Kickstarter to do this project?
It's the only one I know of, to be honest. I would imagine there's other crowdsourcing sites. So, but it was successful for Jason Scott, and then I started looking at it, regularly, and it seemed like it was the site itself was very successful, and people were doing successful. So I didn't even consider any other site. What are some other ones?
I was just wondering, well, you said earlier that you saw this other person do his site, and so I was just wondering, how you found out about it, why you decided to do that. With this particular project, or maybe it was just that you heard this other person, they were successful, and you...
Oh, right. No, it was really for me to accomplish, it was because, printing a book is... so I'm looking at, I had a very successful project. It's allowing me to produce more of the books, more of even what I pre-sold. But, let's say that I was just going to do... I pre-sold 95 copies. So let's just say I was going to do a very modest book-on-demand publishing project of 100, even... Roughly, they're about, they're cheaper the more you get, so that would still be over $1,000, not $1,200 or something off the top of my head. So it's a lot of money to come up with just me to save and go do. So this seemed like I had nothing to lose to see if I could make it work. $1,200 was my minimum goal to try to get at least 100 copies, and then of course I could sell some and then print more, and that's what I'm going to do.
And you ended up getting 3 times that.
Yeah, almost.
Just about.
I know. I'm very happy with how it turned out, but that last little, I think it was 293%.
Yep.
So it's like, oh, maybe we reached 300%.
Yeah. So how much research or work did you put into the project before it was launched? You said you applied in March. And was it just time, you didn't have the time to put into it, or did you really do your homework on it?
Well, I'm trying to think. So when I first heard of Kickstarter was probably, I'm going to say, a good 4 or 5 months before then. So here and there, I would look at Kickstarter and just see what other people were doing. but it wasn't until March that so once I applied and I spent a few days just doing that initial, and you're doing one, so you know what I mean, where you do that initial, what's it called, where you're asking to do a Kickstarter project. What's the word?
The proposal. Yeah.
Thank you. So, I probably spent a few days on that, and I carefully, thought about the awards, and which is kind of easy in my case. You get a book, you get a very tangible item that basically you're getting it for what it's going to sell for. So $25, you got a book with me signing it, and it's shipped to you in the U.S. So the book's going to be $20. So that's about right. Okay, but anyway, to answer your question further. So then once that was once that was approved, then I had some changes in my life, like I quit a job, started another job, and just a lot of other stuff going on. So that kind of made it why I didn't start until later on. So once I got ready to actually start the project, I probably spent a good couple of weeks constantly looking at different Kickstarter projects, especially the ones that made it. And I have these up in my browser right now, but I read through Kickstarter, all their guide to, defining the project, creating rewards. They have good information right on their site what to do, and they stressed especially the video.
Yeah, I think that's very important.
Yeah, I probably stressed over that for a good week. Yeah, obviously not for like hours and hours and hours, but good amount of time.
But you wanted it to look nice. Right?
Yeah. And that's a big decision how you approach that. In my case, my video, I'm only really on camera like the first 45 seconds, I think, maybe a minute, and then about the same at the end. And then the good 2.5 minutes in the middle is, again, mine's a book, so it kind of makes for easy, showing the book pages and the covers and different stuff, and then voiceover by me.
Yeah.
So and I also I know we exchanged a couple of emails. Yeah, I'm a talker. I looked at ones that failed, and I still do that just out of curiosity. I constantly look at ones and what are they doing wrong, and I've looked at some where they haven't failed yet, but and sometimes I'm looking at them going, oh, why didn't they do this or do that? It's so bad for the person. Like they.
Yeah, I've been looking at a lot of these, different videos, different projects, successful ones that, as you say, are kind of on the line. And you sort of get this sense of projects that are going to make it or might have a very hard time of going all the way. So how much do you think the guides and everything and looking at those other projects prepared you for the actual experience?
I very well, I think, but I'm in IT, and that doesn't mean everything, but I guess I'm fairly savvy, minimally savvy or decently savvy with social media. So I do podcasting, so I use Twitter already, and Facebook, and I'm in forums and different things. So the promotion part of it kind of came naturally, and that certainly helps, right? Knowing how to promote it.
Sure.
But the guides are really good, especially about the ones I had up was defining your project. And a lot of people really miss that, I think. What are you trying to do? What's the final? If I give you money, what do I get, and what are you doing? The goals. A lot of people. It seems like, and then I'm just amazed at how much some people make. I made my project did like $3,500, but like $40,000-$50,000. It blows my mind. But how much did you ask for? I thought I'd keep it humble.
Yeah. No, I think that's an excellent approach. I think one of the mistakes I've seen a lot of people make is kind of, go for too much at first. I think even with myself, I got very lucky with the amount that I, went for in the race, and I was able to hit it on my first project. But I think, doing it over again, I might not have gone for that high amount the first time. We just barely made it. And
what was I did look at your first one. I don't remember now after a long day of work and stuff. What was your first one again?
So we went for 15,000.
Oh wow!
To do a film or to start a film.
Okay.
And we sort of barely made it. We limped home at the end and just crossed the finish line. We were holding our breath the whole way. But I think one thing I definitely learned through that process was that your type of project where it's between a couple hundred and 10K is very reasonable. And I think that a lot of people think that this is just like free money and the internet's going to show up and make this thing happen and get tens of thousands of dollars. And I think what people miss is how hard it is to get those people to back a project and for the internet to show up.
Yeah, right. I think, and that's an expectation or a non-expectation, I guess. So I think I knew that to a certain extent, and I picked up on that. Yeah. That so yeah, I worked very hard to constantly promote what was going on, and it did very well. I mean, but you know what, I had 97 backers, which is great. I'm very happy with it. But even that's not like, you know, a landslide of people.
Right.
You know, considering for 30 days and you know how much I promoted and stuff. But I mean, it's great. Yeah, but
I feel like there's this allure almost. You look at all the most funded, and they have thousands of backers and, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and you're like, oh, I'll just post it and take off. And I think that's not exactly what happens.
I mean, so the biggest thing, you know, goal in my case was, is there enough interest out there, you know, $25 a shot, right, to get a book, a signed book shipped to you. So for $1,200, big math here, what is that? 4 times 12, that's at least 48 people would have had to have bought a book. You know, is there enough people out there that want to reprint, you know, this computer history book? And so I thought, yeah, come on, there's got to be that many people out there would buy it. Yeah. And so, but that was kind of easy. So I see some people too, they kind of, it seems like they want more donations, and that's not, and Kickstarter is not really supposed to be for that.
Right.
You know, other than that first level, you know, give us $1 or more, and, you know, thank you very much, and we'll put your name on the webpage. And
I think you're absolutely right. I agree with you. I think a lot of people take this approach of help me, help me.
Yeah.
And what I'm seeing is the more that you can get it to, this is my project, this is what I want to do, and this is where the money is going, the more people respond, and there's a lot less friction into that whole process, you know. You actually had a great segue into the next thing that I wanted to talk about, which was the audience. You know, how did you go about looking for the audience for this project? Did you have one in mind when you started it?
I did. So again, I think in my case, maybe I'm an exception, or at least I'm a little special in that sense. Is, even though granted my audience is probably kind of small, generally speaking, the computer history nostalgic people. But I do a podcast, you know, so I'm involved in a sort of a community of computer history people. So there's forums out there, and people follow me on Twitter, like 125, I think. You know, not tons, but enough. And then some people would retweet that. So so I kind of had at least a minimal built-in audience, which, you know, helped out. So I mean, you know what? I could probably have done this book, maybe, you know, without Kickstarter, but it would have taken way more work and longer. But I probably could have just, hey, who wants to pre-order my book, you know, and
yeah,
kind of did it that way without a central sort of tool.
Yeah,
that guarantees.
I think there's something about having your project on Kickstarter that helps people, you know.
Yeah,
I don't know what it is. Feel like it's real, or adds credibility. Yep.
Yes, absolutely. That too.
So
makes
you
it more
had
official.
Yeah, exactly. So you had this audience sort of built in before you started the project, then.
Yeah, because like I say, so I do one podcast that regularly. I do 2 other ones irregularly, but this one with me and 2 other guys, and so every 3 weeks. So what I think we did 2 episodes during the 30 days. It just worked out that way, so I was able to sort of advertise it that way. And then there's other podcasts that are, mine's called the Retro Computing Roundtable, so it's more general computer history, computer collecting, all kinds of computers, right? But then there's one called Open Apple that's specifically for Apple enthusiasts. But, you know, we're all kind of buds and, you know, peers in the community, so they would mention my, you know, my Kickstarter project. I also reached out to some of the blogs that I read, and I asked them, you know, would you promote this or talk about it? Which a few did. A real good one I can mention is called retrothing.com, which is all about just all kinds of retro retro in general, but specifically more gadgets and appliances and cars and not just computers, things like that.
Yeah.
Nostalgic thing.
So, I think this is a really big thing for me, just the audience. And I think a lot of people don't spend enough time thinking about who the audience is and how you reach them and those kind of things. And, when you run one of these projects, you find out how important it is. They don't just show up. You have to do these things. You have to go out and work and get them and bring them in. And I think one of the reasons from my point of view why you were successful is you have this audience sort of already built in, and you can talk to them and you can reach it. And it's also a very specific niche kind of project.
Yeah. Also, while you're talking, it occurred to me something. I'd almost like put this in. The economy's not so good right now. You still see new businesses starting. And the success of just brick and mortar businesses is what is it like? Most I don't know. Most of them fail within 5 years or something.
Yeah.
But I think it's an even higher average in restaurants. And like in my community here, it seems like there's constantly pizza restaurants going up and then they're closing. And it's like, how many pizza restaurants can the economy sustain? But I guess the point I was thinking of here is that, mine was very niche-y, and I had to kind of bring in the audience more. But I think there's other examples. Like, I've been fascinated with a Kickstarter project, the guy doing the jellyfish aquarium.
Yep.
Have you seen that one?
I have, yeah.
How's he promoting that? I mean, is there lots of jellyfish enthusiasts already? But I think people are also just browsing Kickstarter, and that particular project, that product is so unique that
it kind of stands out.
Well,
right?
yeah, and my brain works kind of, I know, a little ADD about stuff, but like in business, they say that the three most important things in a business is location, location, location. Yep. Absolutely true. But I think if you have a product or a business or a company that is so, can't think of the word I want to use, so specialized, so unique, so
niche, awesome,
then people will drive miles into the woods to come to your whatever it is or buy whatever it is you got.
Right. So
I think maybe that jellyfish thing is like that. It's just so cool that even people just browsing Kickstarter, $350, I'm in.
Yep. Yeah. Well,
I mean, get off on that.
No. I think it's a great point, and I think you kind of hit a little bit of that with your project, because it was able to get 3 times the original funding amount and I think you sort of hit an audience with an idea, and it connected with them, and what I'm finding is the better people are able to do that, to align their pitch with the audience and what they're looking for, the more likely it is to kind of take off, like the jellyfish people, and there's a big difference between a book about historical computers and jellyfish.
Right. But it would be interesting to find out where, I know that there's coming a point where I'm going to send a survey out to all the supporters. Yep. So I don't have experience with this. So I don't know if I can, I'd like to be able to ask them, where did you find out about this? That'd be a great question. So I don't know if I'm able to do that or not. But
I think you can.
I'd love to find. There's some people we're browsing from that. Huh?
Yeah, you can add your own questions to the to the survey. Yep.
Excuse me. So yeah, I might do that. Hopefully, get some answers.
Yeah, it might be interesting to see which of the venues that you tried actually worked and brought in people.
And let me just add. So we just did our podcast this Saturday. And so one of our topics we talked about was the 30th anniversary of the IBM PC. So it came out in 1981. So it's been 30 years of PC computing, and of course Apple Computer, Commodore, some of those late 70s, right, middle late 70s. So personal computers have been around for 30, 35 years now. So I think the whole my topic area, it's starting to come into being of really being more mainstream of a nostalgic sort of, so that helped. I think you know where I'm going. That it's now it's becoming really more real nostalgic for people. Old computers, where when I first started collecting 20 years ago, it was pure trash. And a lot of people, old computer is garbage still, but now they can be more interesting to at least some people.
I think my old one got thrown out, which we're still like kicking ourselves about.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's very interesting. It's a topic that's becoming more relevant. People are looking back into the past. You know, the success of Apple. They're going back. They're looking at the originals. They're looking at the homebrew club. So it really sort of struck a nerve with a particular audience. And
Right.
I think that's what, to me, as an outsider, that's what enabled your project to do so well. You know. So one of the projects that I ran into, someone was suggesting that you actually go for more than like what you had in mind, because the thinking was you get more people, more traction. And I've been going back and forth about that one, you know.
That you start off asking for more?
Yeah, so instead of asking for how much did you go for? 1,200?
Yeah.
1,200. So instead of asking for 1,200, you go for 4,000 or something like that, because it'll, you know, towards the end, it'll bring in more people.
And you know, I definitely spent a good bit of time thinking about how much. That was definitely a big question. How much? And then during the campaign, you know, once I clearly broke the goal, like in the 5th day, I think it happened. Then, you know, I was thinking like, wow, is this going to actually maybe inhibit people to want to support? Like, you know, he's good.
Yeah.
You know, he's reached his goal. We don't need to support him. But, you know, again, in my case, maybe it's just a matter, you know, if you really liked what I was doing and liked the book, then, you know, it doesn't matter how much the goal is, right? I want that book. So it's kind of a selling job, you know.
Yeah, and you know that it's going to happen. You know that it's fully funded and people are behind it, and you're going to do it.
Right.
So
but that's really
no risk.
Question about how much. That's you know.
So looking back, I mean, what do you think? Do you go for, you know, the minimum viable amount, or do you shoot for something higher?
My advice to anyone would be, there's always exceptions. So generally speaking, I would go with the absolute minimum that you need, because it doesn't stop you from getting more. So there's no downside, really. I mean, or minimum downside, because if you don't make your goal, you don't get anything. So,
right, and that's the biggest downside.
Right, that's the downside. I mean, so to me, there's a very minimal downside if you make your goal low. I mean, and then you can still get way more. I mean, like I did, and lots of people get. So I don't know. Do you ever know what the highest, like? Actually, maybe I can. What is the one I saw where, you know, like they, you know, like I did almost 300%. What's been the most above their goal? You know.
Oh, that's probably the TikTok, because they raised $1 million, and I think it's they went for
10,000% or something.
Yeah, it's like 3,000%, I think.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But I mean, if you look at that project, it's pretty much a finished product. You know, and they are doing a similar thing where they're pre-ordering, you know, this watch kit.
Right. Yeah, and that's pretty easy. So especially have something finished. But now, you know, I've also watched some where it looks like what the people are talking about is so like barely even planned out, or really, you know.
Yep.
That seems to hurt people too. I mean, so I think in my case, I was able to show that this is all tangible and real, and so it's just a matter of, I need the money to help, so I can get them printed, you know, get enough printed at once to have the money to do so, and then you get something tangible out of it.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, personally, I think that's the type of project that works best. Are those where it's like, you know, this is the project, this is what the money's going for, and here's what you get. You know, and it's not this, well, I have this idea about something and I want all this money to make it happen. You know, it's really very specific about, you know, everything in the project. So the other,
go ahead.
So the other big decision that you have to make is how long do you go for?
Yeah, right. There you go. That was another. And you know, to tell you the truth, let me wake up my Bluetooth. I'll say blueberry, blackberry. On my mouse here, but you know, I followed the recommendations of Kickstarter, so I happen to be on this page. So for one thing, they say make a video, so absolutely, I made a video. Why wouldn't you? But yeah, I followed their what they said about setting as your goal, and then also, so we were just talking about that. But then about your project deadline, they statistically projects lasting 30 days or less have our highest success rates. It's right there. Kickstarter said that, so I'm like, okay, that's. I didn't really want to wait 60 days anyway. I'm impatient, but that made sense to me that it could get kind of old. Or my battery alarm just went off. Sorry.
No worries.
Can you? My wife's right here, so excuse me. Can you plug it in for me? Real life.
That's the fun part about doing these live. You never know what's going to happen.
Right. Okay, I'm good.
Okay.
Charge it again. Yeah, I mean, so I really, and it's not like I spent hours reading. I probably spent 15, 20 minutes or so really scanning all this, what's it called? Kickstarter school, the facts and stuff. And then just looking at other Kickstarter projects and going with my gut. What do I think works and doesn't work? Or what appeals to me.
I think that's important. You really have to take the guidelines, whatever we're saying or whatever is going to be in the PDF, and just adapt it to your project. Sometimes the rewards, don't fit your mold, and you have to kind of adapt it to it, or you do something crazy with them or fun, or
Yeah.
I'm just thinking back to my own project, and we did 60 days, I think, for our project.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. And I think it actually, it helped us just because we didn't have any audience to start with. And so it ended up being mostly family and friends, and it didn't really kind of take off until the very end. But we really needed those 60 days to get the word out and get people on board and, talk about what we were doing and that kind of stuff. But really all the action happened in the last week, right? In the last 30 days or less.
I was just finding yours.
Yep.
So I found it. Yeah, I want to do more though. I got to say, doing this Kickstarter project, I mean, it was sincerely and legitimately to accomplish what I wanted to do, get this book out. But now I'm like having all kinds of ideas of other other things, and there's other projects that I've even had in mind that aren't related to computer history at all. If you want to hear it, I'll even tell you kind of one.
Well, it's up to you. We are going to record this, and people are going to hear it.
Sure,
but
and
then
I don't even know
how you'll build a little momentum before the project launches.
All right. Well, so this is a little odd, but it's so I'm a bit of a collector, So I collect old computers, and that's my main hobby, computer history. I like Star Trek and some sci-fi and stuff. So I collect a little bit of like Star Trek ships, other stuff. But I'm a big avid reader. But a few years ago too, I started another collection of something that's a little different. So as a little boy, I always liked toy ovens, but those are girls' toys. So I never got one. An easy bake oven. Yep. But I had a cousin that had one. So a couple of times in my childhood, I got to play with one. I mean, who wouldn't want to make their own little cakes and stuff? So I have a daughter, and so once she just turned 18, by the way, so she's an adult now. But when she was like 7 or 8, I bought her an oven, easy bake oven, which we still have. So we hung on to it after she stopped playing with it. And anyway, so I started collecting toy ovens. Out of fascination. I think it's kind of interesting. They've always mostly been a girl's toy. If you go look at the current Easy Bake Oven, and for a number of years they're pink and purple, definitely targeted to girls. They played around with targeting them to boys. Back in about 7, 8 years ago, they came out with the Queasy Bake for boys, and it was a failure. They've made some other cooking toys that had boys and girls on the box. Anyway, definitely a girl's toy. I mean, if you ever watch the Food Network, or you cook yourself, or you're into food stuff at all, I mean, just plenty of men involved as cooks and chefs and food. So I've had an idea of making sort of and interesting why I'm saying this. Hasbro just came out with the brand new Easy Bake Oven, like in the last month or something, pink and purple. But so I was having an idea of making a true toy oven that's not pink and purple and geared to girls. Sort of a toy oven that looks like a stainless steel little miniature modern oven. I know it was a long explanation, but that's about it.
Yeah,
really.
yeah.
Now that, so thinking about that, how much support could that really get? Could it really just, could it maybe
Well, if you
touch
can
something
find
that a
the
lot of people,
audience,
wow, that's
right?
great, or, huh?
Yeah, I mean, if you can find the audience and you can
Yeah.
bring it
So I
to
have
a
no idea
point,
where to promote that.
right?
Other,
And that's the tricky part. That's sort of the key. If you can figure that out beforehand, and you know who you're going to approach,
yeah.
I think it makes the whole process a lot easier. So, if you're going to do that, then go look for people who collect ovens online and see if they're interested.
Yeah,
And
now of course I've also had thoughts of doing like a pictorial or a book, another book, something I
yep,
know, right? And maybe just having sort of a picture book, of toy oven history, and no one's really done that. If you look on the internet, you can't find a lot. People with collectors pages, and so this is something not a high priority. I'd like to take pictures and start up a fan
yeah,
page and stuff like that. So I have other ideas.
yeah. So I think it could work. That's the long tail, right? That's what there's like an infinite amount of interest in all these random hobbies and all these different things, and I think that's what's so interesting. But the hard part is finding the audience for it before you start the project, because if you don't do that, then
Yeah,
and that's one of that when I saw your project on the site, that's one of the things I picked up on right away. I was like, oh, here's someone who's been doing this for a long time. He has this built-in audience, and he's doing something for them, and I think
yeah.
that makes it a lot easier.
Right, right. I mean, it was a lot of work, and I put a lot of thought into it and research.
Yeah.
It certainly wasn't easy, but yeah, for me, it's like right place, right time. Things came together, like you
Yeah.
said. So it made that part of it kind of, the audience part really was there and sort of easy.
Yeah. So
So
this is kind of a two-part question, but like, how much time do you think you put into the project as a whole, thinking about everything, rewards and dates and reading the guide and all that stuff? And then,
wow.
all right, then I'll ask the next question when
Oh,
you're
okay.
done with that. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to work backwards. So the my Kickstarter project just ended last night at 11 p.m. So it just ended. So I haven't posted an update yet today, but I have spent probably 30 minutes or an hour of also some people congratulating me and going back and email and other stuff. I would say on average though, so going back 30 days, if I had to average it out, I definitely had to spend at least 2 hours. So I'm just trying to come, 2 hours a day. So that's 30 times 2 is 60 hours. So let's say 61. I spent 3 hours making a certificate. I'm doing this, but it's in Photoshop. It's digital that I'd send to people who supported me. That's how
Yeah.
big it printed. So, so that's 64 hours. The research and putting together the proposal and then the actual video. Wow. So 64. I'm just going to say 20. 84. So let's say anywhere from 80 to 100 hours, maybe right now. Now, I still have to. I'm still finalizing the book itself.
Yep.
I have to then send it off to be printed. I have to do my survey. I have to get all the people's addresses and everything all cool. I still have to send out to the people that are international to get the difference in shipping. Wow, I have to mail out the books. Put them in padded envelopes and mail them. That's going to be time consuming. So figure 80 to 100 hours now and another 30, 40 hours maybe.
Yep. And
So
that's just
wow.
sort of preparing for it. The 80 to 100 is just getting ready to launch the project and to run it. And I think people sort of underestimate, how much time that takes, and how much you need to get it out there. And that's something I definitely didn't realize going into the first time. And then after the first month, and we had 7% funding, I was like, oh boy, I better get to work, And what's
But
interesting
especially if you have tangible things that you have to handle and send to people. And, let's say, well, I got 1,000 backers. I mean, that's 1,000 things that you have to, even if it's little or big, you have to handle every one of those and address it and take it to the post office and, whatever.
So one of the things I did this time, if you look at all my rewards, especially for this project, they're all digital.
Yeah.
So, I realized from the first lesson, we did 13 different combinations of rewards. I think that includes no rewards as well. but like we have 13 different things we have to manage, and I had to build this like complicated spreadsheet to keep track of it all, and I need addresses and I need to hunt down all my friends, and this really, really complicated process. And so this time I was looking at it and I'm like, all right, 5 things, they're all digital, stuff that I can email to people, right? Or maybe a Skype call here and there, but
I want to show you
keep
something.
it really simple.
Oh, yeah, this is my complicated. So this is how I kept track of people. So their name. Oh, should maybe not have their name. But, their name, and then how much they supported me for.
It's not
and
that
then,
clear, so.
yeah, and then I would check off after their name when I acknowledged them through Kickstarter, and then I would check off after the amount if they got back to me, and then I sent them the certificate. So I did a bunch of these cards, and then just today I took them and copied them so I can have them actually in order onto more manageable sheets, which I'll make more copies of this. And then, I guess I'll probably ultimately maybe put it into a computer. I'm not sure. But that was my complicated system.
Yeah. I mean,
but it was a system. I had to really keep up and think about it. And
oh yeah, it's a lot of work. I have this spreadsheet with all the different combinations and the rewards and shipping, and it's a mess. And looking back, I'm like, oh, why did we do so many combinations and so many different rewards? And
yeah.
But that's part of the process. You kind of learn all that stuff going through it. So the other,
and that's an interesting topic right there too. Is right limiting, how many rewards. It doesn't necessarily make it more fun. I mean, unless you really have different items, I guess.
Well, I think one of the interesting things that I see is a lot of people spend a lot of time, or they have a lot of options, 1,000+ range. And I think, it's very unlikely that someone just randomly on the internet is going to click on your project, love it so much, and that they're going to back, $1,000+ to it. Mm-hmm. And all the people who contributed high amounts to my project, I knew beforehand for the most part. I think there was one surprise in there, but the rest of them, I knew personally. I knew that it was coming in. I talked to them offline about it, and it wasn't like, pledge 5,000 and I'll fly you out to here to see the movie or something.
Right.
It was very realistic, and I think we got that part right. But a lot of people sort of have this expectation that someone's just going to drop $2,000 on their project, and
just be real generous.
Yeah, and I think if you like what you were going back to, if you go back to that Kickstarter school, they say the most popular award is 25, and the average amount is 75. And there's a lot of people who don't have rewards in that category. Don't have good awards in that section.
Right.
And that was definitely true in my project. I think we had 170 backers and $1,500, and the average amount was roughly $80 that people gave to it. Right in line with all that. And the most popular award was the DVD for 25. So it's all right there.
Yeah, I'm wondering. I think the most popular one of mine. So $25 was a book, and then $35 was a book, and then also I had made one issue that never got released. So you get the book and that. It's called Classic Computing #1 because these are historically brewed 1 through 9. So that one was 44 backers, and then 42 on the $25 one. And then I had one more level, $100, and that's where you got everything up, from the $35. But then these 8 people, and I made it limited too, which I thought, and I didn't do it to try to play games with people or trick them or anything, but it just make it more of a limited thing, because these are going to be special Kickstarter editions of the book. And I will change that going forward after these. Yeah. But the $100 is for 8 people get 1/4 of a page. So in the middle of the book will be, the 8 people, they get their picture in like a balloon where they can say, I love the Amiga or whatever. So those all sold out.
Yeah, I think it's making it fun and interesting for the backers, and not just, I saw one project, and then I won't name names, but their rewards were sort of like a CD for 25, for 50 a signed CD, and then it kind of went on from there. And it's like, well, you're paying an extra $25 for a signed CD, and
Right.
how much value is there? How much more fun is is the signed CD over a regular CD?
And it's interesting you bring that up, because in my case, I'm signing every one of these books. And so I debated and thought about this. Do I want to? And ultimately, I decided that I want to make the whole context of this book special. So they all get signed. I'm not charging you extra to sign it. Yeah, I mean, it was built in. $25, you get the book mailed to you, in the U.S., and I'll sign it. And it's a special Kickstarter one. You know what I mean? So it's like, I didn't feel right. Like, or $5 more, I'll sign it. It's like, I saw one the other day where, so I'm looking at mine, and you have to pledge this, and it goes down the page.
Sure.
And this person had pledge $1 or more. That's all, right? And then they had a whole paragraph with $5 or more, get this, and then $10 or more, you get that, and 25, all in one paragraph with only the one pledge button. And I was like, wow, did they not really pay attention to, because how when you set it up, you see how it's laid out. Why would you?
Right. I've heard of people
not break it up.
Or I heard of someone, I don't know if it launched or it ran or whatever, but someone who was doing sort of pay whatever you want model. So they'd have, $1 and you can pledge whatever you want beyond that. But
did it work?
I don't know. I just heard of it. I actually haven't found it or looked at it yet. But I think what's interesting is there's still a lot of room to play with these rewards and what you can do, and I hope to see more creativity in that space going forward. One of the really interesting. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I don't keep meaning to interrupt. So you got me tempted to be sort of an anti what you're doing. Like maybe start a blog or a podcast and just go through and just highlight all the bad Kickstarter. Have a weekly podcast, just show all the bad Kickstarter projects every week.
Yeah, there are some funny ones.
Kind of mean, but it'd be fun. The negative approach of helping people to make better Kickstarter projects.
Yeah, tough love, right?
Yeah.
So the last sort of big question that I had for you, and then we'll kind of wrap up here. But
okay.
How much time did you spend on the story? And most of the story is the video, comes through in the video on the Kickstarter pages, but just talking about the history and the project and just the entire story of what you're trying to do and how it came about. How much time did you spend just thinking about that entire thing in the video?
And I'm trying to see. So, and I'm looking at my project here. So, of course, there's about this project part, and that was like one full paragraph, a couple other sentences. This mostly very quickly told about myself. So a little bit of history and about the history of where these zines came from, and then making a book and how big it'll be, and then I'd be adding what will be in them later, which I think it took me about 5 or 6 days, and then I was able to put here's what's everything that was in issue 1 through 9, and filled that out really well. So it didn't take too long on that, and kind of easy even. But the video, I mean, we filmed. My wife filmed me, and I'm sitting in my office right now. So we tried a bunch doing it in here, and I just wasn't happy with sitting here at the desk because this is a webcam, so you're only seeing this little bit of me. But
yep.
So ultimately, we ended up doing it outside, and it was hot too, middle of July. But yeah, the script, what I wrote and what I said, and ultimately I was going to try to do more on camera, and I messed around and finally got my iPad working like a teleprompter and stuff. My daughter would have to hold it up over my wife with the little mini cam and stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at the camera. But so I ultimately did the little first part, on camera, and at the end, and then I did voiceover, which I think was better anyway, but where I could sit there and read it. But that script, what I wrote, I mean, I spent a number of hours on that and tweaking it and reading it. I probably reread it. I'll write something and then rereading it and tweaking it probably 10, 15 times. So a number of hours, 2, 3, probably 3 or 4 hours writing it, and then hours and hours of the filming, and then I have a Mac too, like you do. So in iMovie, I probably spent a few hours, 3 or 4 hours of the editing and figuring out what I want to do. And
Yeah.
those are all kinds of decisions there too about just the fading techniques and, you
Sure.
want to
Do you
look
want things to
professional.
whirl off screen or just
Yeah,
standard fade ins?
right, right.
No, but
Well, and I did the, with the I had some static pictures, and then I had some with the what's the famous PBS guy, where the
oh,
picture
the
kind of scrolls. You know what I'm
Ken
talking,
Burns.
huh?
Ken
Yeah, but
Burns.
anyway, so
Yeah.
I had to make all those decisions, and
Yeah.
but yeah, so that's
Yeah.
all very important, I think.
Yeah, I do too. I think one of the things that I'm talking about in the book is this idea that story can really kind of propel or what propel an average project beyond the funding goal, or it can really take a project where the idea is just starting to form. Maybe it's a prototype, or it's okay. So a great example is I saw this college student, or maybe a high school student, who wanted to make a video game, and his video was just sort of him on a couch talking, but like you just watched it and you could see how passionate he was about it, and he just wanted to try to do this project, and you're just
Yeah,
like, I want to help this kid, let's see what he got, give him a chance. And I think those stories are important, and a lot of people may not quite put enough time and effort into it, because if you can really nail the story and talk about why you're doing it and what it means to you, then I think it helps everything out. It helps the entire process along.
yeah. So he was selling himself, or it's a
Yeah,
combination of you could have, and I'll use the term product. Okay, so you could have
sure.
a product that you're selling, and if it is just so compelling, like I was talking about earlier, like if you have something so compelling, a store or something, people will drive miles in the dark or whatever to get to it or whatever. Then maybe you don't have to sell yourself as much because this is so awesome, right?
Right.
So depending on how lesser and lesser awesome this part is, you have to be more awesome. Not that you're tricking people into,
Yeah.
but you're selling, like this person you're talking about. He was selling himself.
Right.
So
The
yeah, it's
funny thing
important
was
to sell
he wasn't even meaning to sell himself, but that's how sort of the video,
his ideas, right?
right,
If you're
right, or
passionate
what he
about
wanted to
something,
do, the passion. So I think it's sort of this balance between the quality of your idea and the passion you have behind it, and you sort of use those two. And I think the very best projects have both, and those kind of
yeah,
propel it
and I
forward.
think mine was like that. I mean, so when I was on camera and what I said, and it was sincere. I
Yeah.
wasn't just writing what people want to hear and trying to. So I really have passion and sincerity about my product, if you will, my book or whatever, and so
Yep.
it came through. And then, but ultimately, the end product had to be good. I mean, whatever it is
Sure.
you're selling
Yeah.
has to be good. That make people want to buy. They're
Yep.
not going to be happy. So, and I think I conveyed that. So,
Yeah. Well, I know even for this project, I put a lot of time and effort into, just like you were saying, into the video, what I was going to say, how I was going to say it, what points I wanted to do, and just like yourself, I really spent a lot of time editing that down and refining things and taking
mhm.
things out and putting that in the description. And the whole point was sort of the exercise of building a really compelling narrative of what I wanted to do in the project, so that people would come and back me. And I think so far it's been working. I mean, in a week, I'm up to 61%. And so I think it is resonating with people. You found it
Yeah,
online and wanted to be a part of,
right, right.
the whole process. So I think that really sort of pays off in the long run, this
Oh yeah, and
storytelling
like
element.
your project, I found because now I'm browsing Kickstarter
Yep.
more often. So because I guess I'm trying to give back. I'm trying to find. So I'm actively looking for other projects to try to support because I was supported and I want to help other people.
Right.
I mean, I want to help other people anyway, but
Yeah. Well, I think that's sort of the reason why I'm doing this too, is because I was like, well, I went through this and I learned a lot, and I think it actually worked out because I spent a lot of time sort of looking into marketing and spreading ideas and a lot of this stuff. And after doing the Kickstarter project, it all kind of clicked, and I was like, I get it. audience and the timeline and why all these elements sort of play together and work effectively, and that's why I was like, well, maybe I should write about that, and that's something that's not in the Kickstarter guide, the Kickstarter school that's online, and that's something that I've just sort of learned through this process, and like you can read that, but you have no idea how hard it is to go out and like write all these emails and contact all these people and get support and realize halfway through that you haven't done enough, and you're like, oh my God, my project's going to fail if I don't step it up, and sort of, I guess my goal is to help people avoid that,
That's good. And we haven't even talked about updates, so that's important.
Yep.
Keeping people excited. And, I had to, and I guess I was a little shocked. But I had 2 people pull out. So I would have had 99 supporters, but I had 2 people drop me.
Oh, really?
How did that happen to you?
No, not yet.
I guess that's common. Perhaps people have a change of mind. Maybe I thought that you couldn't do that once you committed, but, but you want people to not change their mind and stay excited. And even in saying this stuff, though, I'm really not I've never been a good salesperson, and I've been in sales before, but if I believe in something, I am so honest, it's painful. So I've never been a really good salesperson in the sense of, I'm stereotyping, where I can't lie to people. I can't trick people into buying something or whatever. Not saying all salespeople are doing that. So when I do, what I was selling, it's sincere, I'm just trying to tell people stuff and make them buy things.
Well, I think that's what's interesting about the Kickstarter video is sort of your sales pitch is your passion, and you, with the exception of maybe like the very best, like there's one project that I looked at recently, and it was a business launching a product on there, and their pitch video was very commercial, and it was people just sort of like, yes, this is the greatest product ever, I mean, it was a really cool product, I will give them that, but the way that they came across, they sort of lost that, really personal thing. And I think that's one thing that you did very well in your videos, that you could tell this is something that you're passionate about, that you've been doing for a long time, that, you're a collector, you care about this stuff, you've written these newsletters and you're bringing them back, all that came across, and you're like, if you're interested in that subject matter, it's easy, done, and I think the sort of sales pitch in Kickstarter is your passion for your project.
Yes, right. I agree, absolutely.
Yeah.
The most important thing to me was, and this is what I've been telling people in my emails back to people and stuff, is I can't wait to get these back into people's hands. So in this case, it's a book, but I say these, because they were 9 newsletters. Now they're into one book. Yeah. I want to know if people are out there reading this, this again.
Yeah.
So that's the main goal. Yeah, that's what I'm passionate about. I want people, I created these things. I didn't completely write it all, but I want people to enjoy them. And they deserve. I even said in my video, they deserve to be seen again.
Right, exactly. It's sort of the same thing with my project, where I said, you know what, if I don't get the funding for it, I'll just release it anyway. It just,
if my Kickstarter had failed, the book would still be made.
Right.
It would just take me longer.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think those are maybe the best sort of pitches on there, where you're like, I'm doing this regardless, and you're going to help me speed up the process and make it more meaningful.
I should have said that.
Well, see, that's what I mean. You learn those kind of things, and that's one of the things that I said that, and I put that in there specifically for that reason. I was like, I want people to know that I'm not doing this just to make the money and then do it. It's that I believe in what I'm doing. I'm going to put it out regardless, but I really want to make a quality product, and this is how you get there.
Right. That's another, in my case too, that's a nice side effect, is that my book is really going to be high quality, which is really nice, So not only does it make me feel better about my book, but people are going to enjoy it more. It's just going to be, better all around, more successful and more enjoyable. So that's nice.
Yeah. So I really just have one more question for you, and
Okay.
that would be, what advice would you give to other people that are interested in doing a Kickstarter project?
I guess the thing that's in my head or pops in my head the most is focus, which we've touched on quite a bit. Is I think so when you check out a Kickstarter project and and you're considering maybe supporting it, is you want to fully understand what is it that they're doing, what is it they want to do, they're going to do, what do you get out of it, which could be something tangible like a product, buy my book and you get my book. That's what you get out of it. I'm making this book, and if you like it, you'll get one. And cool, right? But or it could be that that is really great what they're doing, and I can't think of an example of something. Anyway, that you don't necessarily get something in your hand out of it, but I feel good about helping this out.
Right.
Send this band to camp or something
it's
like that.
Yeah, it's a lot of the projects border on sort of altruism and commercialism, and it's sort of this
And they're not supposed to either one, really, are they?
Right. Well, it's not supposed to go on either extreme.
Right.
The whole site, if you listen to the founders, is this patron model of both. It's, I'm supporting this project because I like the subject matter, I believe in the person or the cause and what they're doing, but I'm also getting something out of it, whether it's a book or a DVD or a movie or whatever. I'm getting something in return for the money that I'm giving. So it's not free money, and it's not backing some commercial giant that I have no connection to. It's this real in-between space, and that's what makes it so interesting.
So just finishing, so definitely focus and then details, attention to detail, and and take your time. One of the great things that Kickstarter said to me in their email or what, they said, "You're approved, yay, you could have a project," and then they said something along the lines of, "This will never expire. Take your time." Do you remember that? Something like that. You take as long as you want to prepare for it.
Yeah.
That's great. Don't rush it. Be very focused on what you're doing, why, how, what, all the things we discussed.
Right.
Goals and rewards and everything. Think it all out. Take your time.
Yeah.
Definitely spend time looking at other projects. That's the best way to learn.
Absolutely.
I think.
Yep. And hopefully this guide will help people too.
And you're sorry. I'm talking past tense,
Right. No, but I think this is really helpful information, and one of the reasons why I did want to talk to you is because you sort of have this, as I wrote in my update, this sort of perfect project pitch where or perfect project, the size and scope and the audience all came together, and those are the ones, if I look at them, I'll be like, that one's no problem. And I think if people sort of focus on those, at least on the first time, once you get used to it, it makes the whole thing a lot easier. I made my goal, but just barely. And I know it sounds weird because I made, $15,000, but if you knew how close it was at the end and the way that the backers broke down and how we sort of like at the very end, it was like, we need one more person to show up, and like, maybe 5 did, you're like, oh boy, if it had been any more, maybe not, so I feel like I did get lucky, and I'm, sort of humbled by that. And I think
it maybe humility is a good word too. Like you say, it's like setting your goal and trying to keep it maybe more humble, but also depending on how, ambitious, whatever it is you're doing or making, that maybe you should try to start off something smaller, and then you learn something and you're successful, come back and then do the bigger one, or depending on what we're talking about. But
and
I've always felt that way. I've always wanted to start my own business. I never have, but I've always thought, we were talking earlier about businesses failing, that I think it's always better to start off humble. It's not underselling yourself, but don't get to Well, I know a lot of businesses built. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I think it's getting the product to fit the market and having all those things line up. Like the the most successful projects on Kickstarter have done that, where they're offering a product that just connects with a certain market at the right time in the right way, and it takes off. But doing that is very, very hard, you know.
Right.
And the chances of you doing that the first time are pretty tough. You know, like I've definitely done a lot of projects over the past couple years that haven't worked out, that I haven't gotten nearly as much traction. And it's been a learning experience. And having this one project that really did well, I learned a lot about, you know, the whole process and how to do it. And that's where the second project came from. And then I have another project that I'm thinking of doing down the road. And, you know, the whole point is sort of like this project, I'm testing out the stuff to learn, you know, that I learned from the first project, to see if my ideas and theories really kind of came out the right way and if they work. And so far they are. And then the third project is the one that I'm really, really kind of passionate about and that I'm really excited for. And hopefully I'll learn a lot more from this project too, and be able to make that one the absolute best that it can be. And it'll be, you know, bigger than the sum of its parts, you know, and go overfund it, because that's really what I'd love to do with it, you know. And
we'll be watching you.
Yeah. So you gave me a preview. Would you like to hear what the project is?
Sure. Yeah.
So you're probably familiar with South by Southwest.
Uh-huh.
So,
I mean, I listen to tech podcasts, so yes, I've never been to one.
Everyone talks it. Yeah. It was an amazing experience. I went last year to South by Southwest, and my sort of hobby has always been photography, and I got to shoot with this really great camera called the Leica, which is a really high-end camera, but it was it's famous for this genre of photography called street photography, which is about interesting moments and people and funny situations. And so I got an opportunity to shoot with the camera at South by Southwest, and I tried out this genre, and it just works so well for this festival where like there's so much going on and it's really busy and there's all this sort of chaos that's happening, and there are all these little moments that kind of pass us by. So the project is called Street by Southwest. So I'm going to try and document the entire festival in this genre and create a photo book from it, you know. And
that sounds cool.
Yeah, and you know, I'm really trying to figure out, you know, how do you tell that story in a compelling way and make it interesting and fun for people, and you know, so I can do the project, you know. And
when
like
is it? When's the next one?
It's March 2012. So
okay,
you know, so I have a few months to work on putting it together and think about it, and you know, once this one finishes, a lot of my attention is going to go over that way and trying to make it the absolute best that it can be, you know. And just like everything you were talking about, spend a lot of time thinking about the story, rewards, how you're going to structure it, all that stuff, you know, how much to go for, how long, you know, all those things, and do the homework essentially and try and make it the best that it can be. So.
And I just wanted to say, because like you were talking about some of these projects that are really successful, they have very compelling, like the jellyfish tank, for instance, just because we were talking about that, is, you know, the guy, he didn't just like say, what can I do for Kickstarter? And, I'll try, and then he threw it together in a couple of weeks. I mean, right. I didn't spend that much time reading it, but I mean, he'd made prototypes and other ones for this is something this guy's been doing for a while.
Right.
You know, figuring it out. And then, you know, Kickstarter presented itself as a means for him to sell this finalized product. But yeah,
right.
It's not a get rich quick, you know, scheme.
Absolutely not. I mean, it's a ton of work, especially if you're trying to connect to an audience that's outside your friends and family, because they will sort of support you regardless and help you out. And here's, you know, a couple bucks to fund your movie or whatever, but that's not going to get you the widespread attention to get people who don't know you, who aren't connected to your subject matter, to jump in and support you. And that was
right.
sort of like my test with this project, where the audience is not my friends and family, and I have been really good about not pitching it to them, because I don't want them to sort of, well, one, I've already asked them for money, and two, I don't think it's, you know, they're the audience, you know.
Right.
And I was sort of interested to see, you know, like going in, I didn't know who the audience was. but I spent a lot of time on sort of the video and the pitch and the story, so that whoever the audience was would connect to it, you know. Mm-hmm. And I don't see that in some projects that struggle, you know, so they just don't have that sort of mix of storytelling or passion or whatever it is. But then again, there's some with these terrible videos, not terrible, but you know, not very interesting, that don't tell the story well, and they take off. Yeah. You know, so, you know, who knows?
Outliers, is that the
outliers?
Yeah. Term nowadays? I mean, so there's always, you know, weird exceptions. And
right, there's always exceptions to the rule. And so who really knows what it takes to successfully fund a project online? But I hope that by doing this, you know, talking about it, we are able to help other people at least improve the odds of success going forward. Yeah,
and I think your project is very interesting and a very good project. So
thank you.
Yeah, because it's going to now stand, you know, these interviews and stuff. I mean, someone might watch this or skip through part of it, mine, you know, and maybe, but if they only pull a couple things out of me and out of a couple other people, I mean, they're better off for it.
Right, so exactly. Well, that is a great place to end it.
Yeah, maybe you can sell it to Kickstarter later.
Yeah.
You're not too far from New York. That's where they are. You can get a job for Kickstarter.com.
Yeah. Who knows? Crazier things have happened, right? Anyway, thank you so much for your time. This has been great. Very informative. You know, like I said, the reason that I'm doing this, that I'm interviewing people, is to hear all these different insights, throw them together, and hopefully figure out, you know, sort of best practices, although I don't want to use that word, and just how different people approach the same problem of Kickstarter, you know.
Right. It'll be interesting to hear other people.
Yeah. Well, I'll be sure to send you a copy when it's all done. And
Thanks.
Thanks so much for doing this, for talking with me.
Sure, thank you. My pleasure.
Yep. All right.